Welcome to the Pastured Pig Podcast, where we share the successes and challenges of raising pigs on pasture. We talk to producers all over the country, from small homesteads to large commercial pasture operations. Whether you're new to pastured pigs or have been raising hogs for decades, we hope you hear new ideas and new perspectives on pasturing hogs. Here's your host, Troy McClung.
Well, good snowy evening, everyone. Those of you that are in the Midwest and Mid-Atlantic like us, you're probably experiencing the same day that we are. Odd into the April month, but is what it is. Winter just won't go away. So a little bit of snow pounding down here at Red Tool House Farm as I record this bumper. But I hope everyone is staying warm and things are greening up nicely in your area. Those up north, maybe you're just now starting to thaw out. But anyway, spring is coming. Well, a couple quick announcements before we get into our discussion today. First and foremost, I wanted to let everyone know that we do have our first episode, podcast episode on the Patreon firewall side. And that's that deeper dive into marketing that we discussed we'd do, that those that were supporters of Patreon expressed an interest in that. So we're doing that. So if that's something that may interest you, you may want to consider going to Patreon, check that out. I'll put some links below down in the show notes. But that first episode is a deep dive into cost analysis and how to price your products. And we set it up to be focused primarily on pork products, but these same standards would apply for any farm products. So if you're polyculture, you've got other farm supplies or other farm products that you produce, then this would be applicable as well. And we also created a spreadsheet that has examples in it. It's downloadable, and it has the equations in it, so all the formulas already in. So you just simply drop in your information. It'll help you calculate your variable costs and look at your fixed costs. Even gives you a tracker for your feed input, fuel if you need to, and of course calculates all of that. And the way I look at it, the way I do it here on my farm, is I calculate that by cost per pig, and then go from cost per pig to cost per pound. So it's kind of a two-step process. I think it's the best way to track your costs and get an idea of where your pricing should be. So for our Patreon patrons, if you want to access that podcast episode, just simply go to Patreon and you'll see that there's an RSS feed now available. You can add that RSS feed to any of your feed devices, any of your podcast apps that you use. And I even put instructions on there for people using iTunes or Apple. So be sure to check that out. Super easy. You just do it one time, and then all the new episodes will push down to that. And our second announcement is I'm still looking for a veterinarian that would be willing to come onto the podcast to talk specifically about pastured pig welfare and their experience with pastured pigs. And I just haven't had any luck with that. The ones I've reached out to, I've gotten no response. So again, if you're listening, if you have a vet that you appreciate and appreciates what you're doing on pasture, then send their information my way. I'll reach out to them and see if they'd be willing to come on for a brief conversation. I think that would be a good perspective to include. Well, tonight's discussion is a good one. I appreciate Matt coming on the podcast and sharing his experience. He had a rough first go with farrowing. So his first farrowing area on farm, had a real rough experience. And it takes a big guy to come on and tell about the failure. So I really appreciate him being transparent with us, sharing his challenges he faced. But it's really exciting to hear how he's remaining undaunted and moving forward, learning from those mistakes and learning from those issues, but still plowing ahead and still pursuing his dream. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get right into our discussion with Matt. Well, hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Pastured Pig Podcast. Excited to have another great interview set up for you all. Today, all the way from Shelbyville, Indiana, I have Matt Ross with Field of Hops Farm, which I love that name. So welcome to the podcast, Matt.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
All right. So Indiana, at the time of recording, the entire East Coast is supposed to be blasted with snow. Did you guys get any of that? Are you in the mix of it?
Yeah, it's snowing a little bit here. For us, we got like 2 inches a couple days ago, and it's actually sticking around and might get a couple more inches, and that's pretty big time for us right now.
All right. Yeah, we're supposed to get ice tonight, so we're hoping we can get this recording done before the power goes out. We'll see how it goes. If there's just an immediate cutoff to you people listening, then you know that the power went out and Troy was unable to finish. Of course, I guess I wouldn't have published if that was the case either. All right. Well, so first of all, I'm kind of doing this out of order, but I got to address the name. So why is the name of your farm called Field of Hops?
Okay. Well, the first really major thing I went into was I started a small hop field. So I have about 200 hop plants on my farm, and I like craft beer, and went one day and learned that I could grow hops in my area, and I was like, I was intrigued, and decided to look into it more. And it is definitely one of the most challenging things I've ever been around to grow.
No kidding. Yeah. Wow. So
that's where it comes from.
Yeah, you wouldn't happen to also raise rabbits, would you?
No. Field of hops.
Yeah, you could get a lot of dual purpose out of that name there.
Yeah.
A rabbit and a hop farm. All right, let's stop with the dad jokes. So let's back up a little bit, Matt. So you're in Indiana. Tell me a little bit about your setup and what got you into farming. Were you a farmer all your life, or is this something you've just taken on recently?
Okay. I grew up on a farm, around farming my whole life. My grandpa was a full-time farmer, and my dad was a part-time farmer, worked full-time, and then was in 4-H and all that stuff and was around it. And then after high school and some of that, went to college, got away from it and all that, and then decided as I got older I wanted to get back to the country life and all of that. So moved and got 5 acres out in the country, and decided that I don't want to sit here and mow it all, so I wanted to do something with it. So I started a few different adventures, and we have the hops that we started with, and there was already a existing chicken coop that we had, so I got some chickens, and then eventually I said, hey, I want some pigs, because we were eating a lot of pork.
Yeah.
And I said, so let's get a couple pigs. So I got 2 pigs, raised them out, and, we kept one and told the other one of family or whatever, and I'm like, all right, that went pretty well, and listened to some info and some different podcasts and tried to, understand what everybody was doing and what the best way to go. And they're like, okay, don't go crazy. Don't go out and get like 30 hogs now.
Right.
Just get a few more. Okay, well, I'll go get 4 this time. So I went to the guy that I got the 2 off of. Brickshire breeder. He raises show pigs, but, there's a few in there that don't make the cut or whatever, but they still taste just as good. So I went to him and said, I want 4 this time. And he said, well, I got 9. You take all 9 or none? I said, well, I guess I'm going to take 9.
It's the old piglet blackmail.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then it ended up with 9, and that went really well. I did a batch of 4, and then I did a batch of 5, and then I think one, I don't remember which one it was, but I actually took some to the butcher, and then on the way home with the trailer, I stopped at the guy's house and picked up some more piglets too. And then I ended up buying a boar, and decided I wanted to get into breeding, because it's hard to earn that profit if you're paying for feed and buying the feeder pig, from what I've experienced. So now I have a few gilts and a boar, and trying to get my breeding program going.
All right. So let's back up here and address something you said that kind of raised an eyebrow. So you grew up on a farm, family history of farming, but did you raise pigs when you were growing up? Did your folks raise pigs in that situation, or was that something new?
No, we did actually. Started out with sheep when I was really young, and I don't remember much of that, and then went into hogs, and got pretty decent. We had a farrowing house with, I think it had 6 or 7 farrowing crates in there, and was doing kind of back then the just normal traditional thing. It's farrowing crates, and they weren't on pasture, but they weren't in concrete buildings. Mm-hmm. They're just out in a feedlot. Raised land race mostly, so big old floppy ears and mean pigs.
Right. Yeah.
That's what we raised. There wasn't any farrowing in the hut or anything like that. We used crates and all that stuff, and did that for many years. And then Dad went to cattle after that, shortly after.
Yeah.
That.
So what?
With the pigs.
Yeah. So what are the practices? I mean, where have you changed in your process? Are you still lot raising them? It sounds like you're not using the farrowing crates. What's changed in your process from how you remember growing up?
I'm definitely working towards or doing the pasture side of it. I don't, I am feeding corn and a little bit of soy. I try to stay away from the soy too much and just do a lot of corn with the pasture. But with my 5 acres, I get a little limited sometimes, and looking to expand some of that. And that comes with challenges and land prices and all that stuff too.
Right. Yeah.
So trying to, get to that pasture raised and doing my farrowing out in the pasture.
Yeah.
With just little houses and no farrowing crates, and seeing how that goes.
Yeah. Do you have conversation?
Learning a lot as it goes.
Right. Do you have conversation with your folks about that? Does your dad give you some pushback to say, that's not how you do it, this is how you do it?
No. I don't. I haven't had any conversations with my dad. My dad passed away when I was 30, so like 12 years ago. So
I'm sorry.
I haven't had a chance to have any of those conversations with him, but at least not the ones in my head, maybe.
Right. Yeah. Well, this is the part where Troy sticks his foot in his mouth as well. So, yeah. All right. Okay. Well, let's move ahead here and talk about. So you talked about getting this 5 acres. Is it close to the family farm? Are you still kind of in the same neighborhood, or what's the situation there?
No, I'm actually probably an hour and a half away from where I grew up.
Oh, okay.
And it's crazy stories or whatever, and got out of that, went to the big city with some of my friends to get away from home, and then kind of grew up a little bit, and like, I want to buy a house, and then I'm like, I'm not going to buy a house in the city because it's too expensive, so I bought one on the outskirts, kind of in a little small town outside of the big city of Indianapolis, and then I said, well, I want to buy some land. So then I went out even further to get a better price on the land. So ended up hour and a half probably away from where I grew up.
Okay. So is it just you on the farm? Do you have help? Do you have a spouse, kids?
I am married, and we have 2 kids. I have a 6-year-old and a 3-year-old.
Okay, so they're not earning their keep yet. Then it sounds like.
Yep. Yeah, they keep us pretty busy too. So.
Right, exactly. All right. So I always love the evolution of this. That's why I like talking about backstory so much, because I just love to understand how people get into this. And of course, it sounds like he had a history, farming. You got the land. You knew you wanted to be out. And I love what you said. So the fact that you decided to get pigs because you eat a lot of pork, was that really the key catalyst there? Were there other incentives that you ran into?
I think it was probably easy that I've been around it when I was growing up. I'd been around them, and I showed them in 4-H, and that probably helped. But honestly, I mean, it really was. We were buying, like quarter beef and stuff off other people too, and then it's crazy, but the wife, after she had kids, kind of was really turned off by red meat.
Yeah. Okay.
And we don't, just something, whatever happened after having kids, and so we weren't eating as much beef, and we were just eating a lot of pork. So like, hey, well, we're eating pork, so I'm going to get the pigs.
Yeah. Okay. Very good. So you're about, you say you're about 2 or 3 years into this now, as far as raising pigs on your own on your 5 acres.
Yeah, I think so. It's interesting. I get on Facebook or something. I feel like as I rotate, I almost look at my years as my group of pigs.
Right.
I had this 2, and then I had this 4, and then I had this group, and I'm like, I feel like it's been 6 years or something, and then I get a flashback, and it's like 2 years ago or 3 years ago, and it's my first 2 pigs, and I'm like, oh yeah, that wasn't that long ago, was it? So
yeah, it's
interesting how it's accelerated itself, and trying to keep up with all of it. And
yeah, that's
pretty well.
That's a good time, and I do the same thing. I'm like, well, that was like 3 sows ago, wasn't it? Yeah, okay. That's the calculation more so than it is calendar wise. So, what are you settled on a specific breed? Are you still kind of testing that? I know you talked about getting your gilts and some boars now. What direction did you go there?
Well, actually, so I was going with the Berkshire, pretty popular in what I've heard from, and I honestly don't remember it from when I was growing up. So I'm like 41 now, and so it's been 20 years ago or something. We were raising land race, and I remember Hamps and Durocs and Cross and Yorkshire and all those. But so the Berkshire, that was something available. So I got them. They seem to be going well, and started doing some more research into the pasture stuff, and looked into these pigs that have fur, Mangolese.
Yeah.
And I said, oh, those are pretty interesting, and did some research into that, and the meat's supposed to be a lot redder and different and do well in the pasture, and so I went and got 4 of them. So I bought 2 barrows and 2 gilts and brought them home, and the plan is to breed them, or I did breed them, with my Berkshire boar, and I have 6 babies out there right now that are actually just over a week old.
Oh, okay.
That are half and half. And I plans are always changing, and always trying to learn and make sure things are going right. But I think the direction I want to go in is I want them to be 1/4 Mangolese. So I don't know if I'm going to go and then breed them back to a Berkshire. And I've been thinking about, and some of the stuff I've listened to, and people talking about Durocs, and maybe put some Durocs into it also.
Yeah.
So kind of trying to develop my own cross, I guess, that works well for us.
Yeah, that's interesting. So with breeding the Berkshire boar to the Manga gilt, so it sounds like you bred 2 gilts. So both farrowed. How did that go?
It went pretty well. I have a cross also that I picked up from the guy I got the Berkshires from, and she was going to be a show pig, and then apparently didn't make the cut, so he just sold her to me as a feeder, and she's the most docile, calm pig in the world, and I said, I'm going to keep her and breed her. So I bred her, and I saw her and the boar out in the pasture, almost 4 months ago, and doing what they were supposed to be doing, and I was like, oh, okay, that's good, marked it on the calendar, and I never seen him get a hold of anything else. And I had 2 other gilts. They were Berkshire, and then I had the 2 Mangolese that were with him, and I never seen him mess with any of those. And then probably 2-3 weeks ago, out feeding every day, and I'm like, man, those Mangolese sure do seem like they're developing. Like, I never seen it. And I got lucky, and I walked out in the pasture, what was it? Like a week ago Tuesday, and she had her babies in the pen where she was still with the other pigs, and the boar was in the pen too.
Oh, wow.
He didn't mess with them, so I got them separated pretty quick. So I got away from there. But I was planning to separate them the following weekend, but apparently I was off by about a week.
Yeah, okay.
But so apparently it went pretty well, and they did what they were supposed to, and I do work a full-time job, so I don't know when it happened, but I definitely didn't catch those two.
Yeah, definitely.
And it went well, but my blue butt, my cross, which she went first, definitely did not go well, and was a very interesting experience for us.
Okay, so let's get into that if you don't mind talking about it. So she is the cross and bred with your Berkshire boar, and she goes to Farrow first. What issues did you have? Did you just have a lot of stillbirth? Did you have difficulty? Did you have to pull?
So I went out there, and I don't know, in my thinking that I grew up around pigs a little bit, and I know some stuff, so I'm good. I put her off by herself. I built me a nice hut with a board in the back so the pigs could get away if we needed to, and got everything set up, I think, the way I needed to. I was ready to go. Checked on her all the time and went out. It was a Sunday, and there were two pigs. They were both alive, and they were overeaten, and I was like, hey, yay, she's having her pigs finally. I knew it was going to happen, and I was like, oh, that's good. And I think went back in to help take care of the kids for the morning, and then went back out not shortly after, and she had another one, and it was dead. So I think it was probably born dead, but didn't look like it had moved much or anything. I was like, that stinks, but it's all right. So I stayed out there and, taking care of the other animals and going back and forth and just watching things and knowing there wasn't much more action happening. And I didn't see any afterbirth or anything, and from everything I've read and know and stuff, it's like, okay, it should be, 15, 30 minutes, max between. Something should be happening. She was definitely still having contractions, and so I thought there's definitely probably still a pig in there. So at this point, I wasn't sure what to do. I know this is a common thing now, but back in the day when I was growing up, we didn't pull pigs. I had never heard of such a thing.
Right, yeah.
And I can never remember, I was like, well, maybe Dad did it, and I don't think it did. I don't think we ever pulled a pig. I never heard of such a thing. So I started making phone calls, and luckily I knew a few people. There's a guy in northern Indiana that's been doing it for a few more years, and talked to him and got his advice, and that's when he started telling me, he said, well, she's probably got another pig in there, and you're going to have to go in there. I'm like, oh, okay. So I got the wife involved, too, and since she's got smaller hands, and heard that can be important because pigs aren't that large.
Yeah.
So we went back out there. I think we ran to this town real quick. It was 10 minutes away, and, got some shoulder gloves and some lube, and then we went in to see what was going on, and there was definitely still a pig in there. And tried, get a hold of it. Everybody said that we talked to, get a hold of whatever you can and get it out of there.
Yeah.
And we just couldn't do it. Like, you could reach the pig, you could get it, but you couldn't get your hand out and the pig out together. And it just didn't work. And so, luckily, we had a number of resources. My 6-year-old, I got him enrolled in mini 4-H this year, so I was talking to his 4-H leader. He has pigs, and then I was talking to my friend up north, and then the wife was texting one of our neighbors that knew someone that had animals, and so that we had all kinds of people we were talking with, which was great, and trying to get the right decisions and what was going on. And learning that, there's use like a goat puller or something like that too in the future, and that this is a common thing these days because I guess we breed now for a lot of show stuff. They're, muscle, muscle in the barrows, and that it gets into the gilts, and so now it's they're a lot more muscular than they used to be. So it's a very common thing to have to pull pigs. So that was a learning experience, and something that I feel bad about for my pig that I wasn't more prepared for, and all of that. So we ended up not being able to get it out. So then our neighbor, actually went to Purdue University. I don't know if you've heard of that great school or not.
Yeah.
She came out and had worked for a large ag pig operation in Indiana and had done this many times and went in and tried as well, and she couldn't get it out either. So in some aspects that made us feel a little bit better because we were like, oh, we don't know what we're doing. We weren't doing it right.
Right.
It was just a bad situation. So at that point, then we make the call to the vet, and I was kind of shocked as that call went, but then afterwards you think about it and it makes sense. And I called, and they had to call him because it was a Sunday, and he finally called me back, and he said, it's a gilt? Yeah. And he said, my hands are too big. I'll never get inside of her. And I said, okay. And he's like, sorry, there's not much I can do. And our friend had said something about maybe a potential C-section or something. So I said something to him, the vet, about maybe performing a C-section, and he said no. He goes, in my experience, he goes, it's just the chances of the pig surviving it, the mom of the C-section, are very slim. So
yeah.
He goes, I refuse. I won't do it.
Wow.
So I was kind of like, okay, well, great. I guess I should have got a different vet lined up ahead of time. But then to think about it and just, as a business, cost-wise and everything else, it definitely made sense. I understood where he was coming from, and it was definitely the right call, I think, to make. So he said, just keep trying. Let her, give her a break, then go back out later this evening and see if you can try it again. Like, okay. So we went back out later that evening, as we're, the 6-year-old and 3-year-old are in the house. So I had to kind of bribe my 6-year-old to kind of keep an eye on his brother a little bit so we could both go out there.
Right.
But we went back out there, and then we couldn't even feel the baby. We couldn't even find the baby at all that time. So there was potential talks to previously in the afternoon that maybe she had got a tear. So now we were worried that we were going into the tear and not into the right spot, and that's why we couldn't find the baby, or the baby went back in. Either way. So she was just laboring really hard, and we couldn't find it. So at that point, it was a tough decision, but we're kind of stuck. There's not much we could do. I'm preparing myself to potentially have to put her down the following day because I don't want her to sit there and suffer, anything like that. It's very important to me that the animals are treated right, and I think that's a lot of one of the biggest things about, I think, pasture pork and the movement or whatever you want to call it that we're in is you treat your animals right.
Right. Yeah.
Yes, at the end of the day, we're gonna put them on our plate and all that, but we're gonna give them a good life, and we're gonna treat them the right way. So, trying to prepare for that, and eventually went to bed and got up early, and I think she hadn't passed one yet still. She was still contracting, and so then I called the vet again, and he was he's like, oh, darn, I was hoping she was past it. And he's like, so then he said, okay, well, I'm going to put her on some udder block to give to her, and hopefully that'll help, and just give it time. And he said, he goes, this is a rare case. He goes, but I've seen before where a pig will pass a baby after 8 days later.
Oh, gracious. Wow.
So it starts to decompose and all that. And he said, I've seen it happen. So now that's a rare case. He's like leaning towards it. Most likely she's not going to make it. The babies definitely aren't going to make it. But, we'll give her these meds, and I think just to boost her and maybe shut down her milk production. And at that point, sometime Sunday evening, she had laid on one of the 2 babies she had that was alive. Mm. So at that point, I had 1 live pig. So then at that point, I came in the house and said, okay, your mom's distressed. Mom is not feeling well. We've not been nice to her for the whole day. So, you're just going to come inside. We'll bottle feed you, and that'll be done. It's not the mom's fault. It's just she's not feeling well. So we're taking care of that one in the house. So, and that one is still doing very well, and is taken to the bottle feeding very well, and getting very chubby and spoiled. So anyway, so we went to the vet, got the meds, started giving that, and then finally, I think it was Wednesday, she finally passed it. One. I was like, okay, well, that's good. Definitely seemed to be contracting still in all those periods, but okay, well, there's one. The thing I do know about pigs is, there's still, that puts us at we're at 4 at this point, so there's most likely more. That's a pretty small litter for pigs, but it could be that small. So we'll see. Haven't seen any afterbirth or any of that. She's still kind of laboring hard and giving her meds and all of that. And she was drinking water, not eating. I think she had finally Thursday got up a little bit and messed around with her feed and stirred in it. So then I was running low on the medication and called the vet Friday and told him, and he goes, okay, let's get you some more of that, and then gave me something else. I think what it was, Banamine, I think, just to boost her appetite. So that was Friday around lunchtime, and I said, okay, we'll do that. And we gave her that, and as soon as I got off the phone with him, the wife had called, and she had passed another one.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So that, we're 5 days later.
That's amazing.
But that's good. And then that was just this past Friday. So then I still didn't see much of an afterbirth. I think at one point I saw a very small amount. And I know pigs in history, they tend to eat it or, could possibly, or maybe she buried it in the hay or something. And anyways, all that. So then Friday I got home, checked on her, gave her meds. And Saturday, when I went out to check on her, she was acting normal. She had stopped contracting. She actually got up a little bit more than she had been. And so I think that was it. And she was done. And she continues to make improvements. And I think she's definitely over that hurdle. And she is going to live. I don't think I will ever breed her again.
Right.
And we'll get her better, and still lays around a lot, not eating much, but doesn't come out of her house. And it's pretty cold here right now, especially for Indiana. I got a heat lamp in there with everything else she's been going on. Luckily, it's close to the house, so I can run a cord out there to get that and just get her taken care of and get her feeling better. And then, we'll make a decision here in a couple months about what will happen to her. But definitely not going to go down the breeding road with her again. I don't think it's meant to be.
Yeah, well, I mean, my goodness, that's
so that was our first one.
Yeah, that's a harrowing tale, and fortunately she survived. Normally in those situations that the guilt doesn't make it either. So that was fortunate that she made it through. But my goodness, let's turn to the good side then. So the Mangalitzes went later, and they had successful farrowings, I assume.
I tell you, it's the farming. I think I saw somebody share a chart or something, and it was this up and down line, real high highs and real low lows, and it was like, this is an example of farming.
Right.
And it's like one day you're like, I love this. This is everything I wanted to do, and everything is going amazing. And the next day I'm selling it all.
Right. Yep. Strike a match and walk away.
You have those, and man, after dealing with that guilt, and I'm like, maybe this just isn't meant to be. I'm not doing something right. It's not happening. And then to walk out there and, again, I know I got lucky because the boar was still in the pen, and there were other pigs in the pen too, but luckily she's a very protective mother. So she did a good job, and I got them separated, and that really, helped us feel a lot better about what was going on. So we have some babies on the ground. We're learning from it, and I hate for the loss of life and that we had with that, and we'll just try to see where we can go. I definitely listened to one of your most recent episodes where you were talking to someone that does pasture pigs but uses farrowing crates.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I really liked what she had to say, and just a couple days in there, and I don't know that I'll go that way, but it's in the back of my head now, and thinking about it and things that are going on. And now I know to be prepared for pulling pigs, and never thought that was even a thing.
Right. Yeah, that's interesting. That's a very polarizing situation with in the pastured pig world, where you bring up farrowing crates. If you're not booing them and throwing things and saying they're terrible, then you're not a pastured pig farmer. And again, man, everybody's got to do what they got to do on their farm, what they think's best for their animals, what they think's best for their setup. And I've got opinions like everybody else. But yeah, it is interesting to see. And when you go out and you've got a litter that's been crushed, or you got even just a couple that have been crushed, it definitely puts that seed in your mind. It's like, man, would this have happened had I had this in place? And again, we could say it comes back to mothering instincts. It comes back to infrastructure. There's certain things there that you can tackle as well. But yeah, it's your farm. You do what you think is best for your animals and your situation. So I do want to real quick, and we'll move on. But the two manga. So the two manga gilts both farrowed, and that was a total of 6 out of the two of them, or were there more out of those litters? What did you think of the litter size?
Okay, the first ended up. Let's see, we ended up with 8 out of the 1.
Okay.
And then the second one, I knew was right close to it. So they actually were, when I separated them, I left them both together, and then they had their own individual houses to go into. And so I knew the second one was going to go too. And, with everything else going on with the other one and all that, I think went out there a couple days later, and she had 2, and they were both dead.
Okay.
The second one. So, again, I'm back to that. I'm not sure what's going on here, and things aren't going well. So I've had 3 gilts farrow, and I have let's see. The one had 8. One was dead when it was born. So then there were 7. And I'm not sure. I've been meaning to research this and look it up, but I don't know with that breed if it's common or not. She is very protective. But once I had seen him, I picked one up with my bare hands and brought it up to the house. She was away eating and showed it to the family or whatever, because we were excited with everything else we had been through. And I don't know if it was that one or not, but one of them eventually got stepped on, which, again, the farrowing crates gets back to some of that. And then it was okay. It had a little scratch on its back, and it seemed like it was okay. And then the next day I went back out there, and it had another mark on it where it looked like it had been stepped on before, or stepped on again. And I almost felt like when I was out there watching him that she was almost kind of not as protective or not caring as much. to that one.
Yeah.
But I don't know, maybe that was me reading into it. So anyways, so that took us down to 6.
Yeah. Okay.
So we were at 6 with the Mang, and then I had the one bottle feed
Yeah.
in the basement.
Yeah.
And then the other Mang ended up having 2. Again, she's very protective, and you get anywhere near the hut and anything, and she's snorting at me and all that stuff. So with them being in the same pen as the other one, she kept going into the hut where the babies were, because I think she thought that maybe those were hers now.
Right. Yeah.
She couldn't figure out where hers were. So I had to put a gate up and separate them too. But I don't know what went wrong with her. She ended up having them. She birthed them. She was fine. Even when I went out there and found them, she was up. She didn't seem like she was laboring still. So I don't know what went wrong with her.
Yeah.
But she ended up only having those 2. She had them by herself. They were fine, but neither one of them made it.
Yeah. Wow.
So I know they're known for, I think, from what I've seen, they're known to have smaller litters, so I'm not overly concerned with the first one's litter size. The second one, too, that's not, not very good. They're only right around a year old, too, so I don't know if that had something to do with it, too.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah, I'd heard that. I don't have much. I don't know much about mangas at all, but I do know they make this. They usually have the smaller litters, and again with gilts, you just don't know what you're going to get there. That's the first go around. And man, I really appreciate you taking the time to recount all that. It's not the easiest thing to do to discuss issues or shortcomings, knowing that everybody's listening and the armchair quarterbacking's going on. So I appreciate you bearing your soul on all this. So let me ask you, so with this success rate that you have, what is your takeaway? When you move forward, what do you think is going to be the next step with that breed line? Are you changing some things? You already mentioned maybe considering farrowing crates, but what other conclusions have you come to?
Well, trying to look at positives and trying to learn. And I think the biggest thing I have learned is I think I was going into it a little too thinking I was prepared. I grew up on a hog farm. I've been around pigs. I'm ready. I don't need to research any of this stuff. I'm just going to let my gilt go out and have her baby. And so maybe I should have been having those conversations with these 4 or 5 people that we were that one day, 2 weeks earlier. Maybe it most likely, especially with that gilt, the one gilt, wouldn't have probably changed anything. Maybe it would have. Maybe we would have been able to get some of those out of there and save her a couple of days of release. But, I think about it in some of the podcasts and stuff that I listen to, and, people like, I've, spent my whole life in the city. I've never been on a farm, and I'm going to start. And it's almost maybe a better take because they know nothing. I know nothing, so I have to research. I have to read.
Right.
And I got kind of thinking, I know what I'm doing. I don't need to look at that. So I just need to know that, I need to prepare and do my research better, and there's nothing wrong with that, and asking questions at all, ever. And the best thing I love about all of it is how helpful and friendly people are. The people that came out to our house, they didn't take anything. They wouldn't take any payment, nothing. No, you're fine. So we just took their, Sunday afternoon, and, it was good people. And it's nice to know that that's the kind of people that you're getting involved with, and the people that do this as well. And moving forward, I think, again, try to look at what's good and what happened. And the board did pretty well. I believe he's probably 70 to 80% throwing boars. So I like that. I did get 2 gilts right now out of my Mang Berkshire Cross, which is what I wanted. So I'll keep those, and then I have some decisions to make as they start to grow, and what I'm going to breed them back to, and where I'm going to end up. So I said, I think I'm leaning maybe towards adding some Brickshire in there, or Duroc in there, or do I want to just get another Brickshire boar and breed them to that?
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Definitely, I don't know, maybe not smart enough or anything, but definitely not giving up and just try to appreciate everything that the animals have been through and learn from it to prevent as much as you can of that, but it's part of it.
Yeah. I mean, that's all you can do, man, is just take your notes, learn, extract what you can from the situation, put up a plan and move on. And that's funny you mentioned the people that didn't know anything. That was my situation. I'd never raised pigs before, and the first 2 Farrowings from AI went so successful. I had 12 perfect out of one and 10 perfect out of another, no losses, no steps or anything. And I thought, what's everybody complaining about? This is easy. and then the subsequent ones, it's like, oh, okay, I see what people are talking about now. I've had to reach in and grab a pig. I've had some loss. I've had an entire litter lost, and I've had a gilt die in the process. So yeah, those things can definitely humble you really, really quick. But you just gotta.
I think that's a good point too, and maybe looking forward to, and not just as I go forward and trying to improve my breeding program or expand it. Not just like, hey, I have a gilt, so I'm going to breed her. Like, let's look at her. Is she the right build? Is she? I need to investigate it better, maybe. And some of it is out of your hands. You can't tell because, there's things inside that you don't know are happening or the way it is. But, not just saying, oh, I got a gilt, so I'm going to breed her.
Right, yeah. Yeah, that's you find yourself learning and just watching them confirmation. I'm doing the same. In fact, I was doing the same thing this afternoon, just looking at 2 of my sows, and it's like, okay, if I was to get rid of one and breed the other exclusively, what's confirmation I like, what are some of the features and temperament and all that. So, there's a lot of things. That's where I always say a good notebook comes in handy, because you can keep track of all that and help put together a game plan.
I think it's definitely going well, and I think getting into it in the right time. There's definitely a lot of interest from people in what we're doing or trying to do. And with my 5 acres, sometimes I'm a little limited in spacing and trying to expand too far, and I don't want to end up in that where I'm 100% just a feedlot. We did have a very dry fall where I was unable to reseed my pasture pens that I have right now. So they didn't get seeded before the winter, which was planned, but that's, part of it too. So I'll get them going in the spring, and luckily I still got some area that I haven't penned off, and I'll get some hot pens around that and make sure that I keep the pigs in some form of grass and where they can do some rooting and get some of those roots and some of that stuff too. So
yeah,
I think that's important in that. And, it's a hard term. I don't know that there's a lot of, with the pasture pork, that, it's not just grass. I don't know that I could be wrong, but there's a few people, I think maybe, that have some pigs that only eat grass, but I think most all operations are supplementing with some kind of feed.
Yeah, I think that's really the only way you're going to have a successful grow out, is if you're incorporating that. That's been my experience, and I think that's what probably the vast majority of people we've talked to have encountered as well. Man, we've talked at length about your loss, and like I said, I appreciate you coming on and talking about all that. And it's always funny how these conversations just kind of evolve as we go along. But before I wrap up, I do want to ask you just a couple questions real quick. So the challenge you face with the 5 acres? You'd mentioned possibly looking at expansion or possibly just kind of re-looking, or even trying to be extra creative with that 5 acres. Now, you are not exclusively raising pigs, right? You have other livestock and other things you're doing on that 5 acres, correct?
Yes. So I have a small hop field. We put out a pretty decent garden, and then I have some chickens as well. The house, when we got it, had a chicken coop on it. I've never been around chickens ever before in my life. But
Wow.
I was like, hey, there's a chicken coop here. Might as well get some chickens. So we got 6 layers. Let's try it out. And I was like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to let them roam. They're going to run free. Free range them, and that's how I'm going to do it. Lock them up at night. We're good to go. So we got into some chickens, and our first pick went really well. You know, we even with the free ranger, we didn't have any predators. We didn't have any issues. I think for the first year and a half, 2 years, and did really well. And then we started to get into the predator issue and all that stuff. But I've done well with the layers. And then this past summer, I decided I wanted some meat birds because similar to the pork, we were eating a lot of chicken.
Yeah. Yep.
So, you know, I'm going to grow what we're eating. So if you're going to keep buying chicken, then I'm going to get some meat birds. Let's try some meat birds. So I got some Cornish crosses, and they were very interesting compared to layers. So I think I'm going to try to find a different breed of meat birds to go to this spring, even if it takes longer to feed them out. I just want them to be I feel like a more natural bird that will do better in the pasture and stuff like that. And our Cornish did actually go out. They would go out and peck in the grass, and, you know, sometimes we'd laugh and make fun because they'd sit down. Like, your layers would go out, they're always standing up, pecking around for bugs and stuff, and the meat birds would sit down and peck at the ground.
Right, right.
But they're just an interesting breed. So we have some chickens on there, too. So, yeah, definitely some other things going on as well.
Yeah, all right.
Tried to get that rotated. Luckily, with the hops, you have 10 foot between each row, so it makes nice little runs that you can run your pigs down through or something else also. So.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's good. That's a good balance there. That would be keep the weeds down and put some fertilizer down in the process.
Yeah, fertilizer and all that. One of my things maybe that I picked up from my professional or my full-time jobs and business side of things is that, you know, don't have all your eggs in one basket.
Right.
And you need to, you know, be diverse because some things are going to maybe not be as good as other years and all of that. So it's good to have some different options as well to help everything carry when things aren't as good. So it's doing well. But, yeah, on a good note, though, I mean, our pork sells really well, and it's everybody enjoys it. And I think one of the biggest things and one of the best things I did was finding the right processor.
Right.
So, you know, before we get off here and talk too long, make this go. But I think that's just as important. And, you know, they tell me, well, you're raising the animal, it's your animal. And I'm like, yeah, I think it's a partnership there. And I can do the best I can at raising the animal. But, you know, I don't want to dog people or, you know, any of that. But if you don't take it to a right processor, you know, they could definitely make it shine or make it average.
Yeah.
So this place is great. I don't sell it as organic or get it processed as organic, but they're certified organic. So like the hams and stuff, they're all processed without nitrate or any of those chemicals or any of that stuff. And they pay their employees well, so it's a little more expensive. But, I mean, they take what we're doing and just make it better. And I think that was one of the best decisions we made was to go with them. And it's an hour-and-a-half drive to that processor.
Yeah. Yeah, that's not too bad. And of course, like you said, that's justifiable in finding the right processor that's going to do what you want, how you want it, and give you that assurance that you're getting your product back and getting it back the way you wanted it.
Yeah, definitely.
All right. Well, Matt, man, I appreciate you coming on. Let me close out with the question here that I ask everyone. What is your favorite part about raising pigs on pasture?
I would say it's a sunny afternoon, but just going out and the socializing with them. But just go out. They like to see you. I like to see them. Little scratches behind the ears, and that little connection there, and just enjoying that nature and part of it, and getting outside in the air and all of that. Sometimes the boar can be a little too aggressive with his hellos, but
Right.
he's all right.
Yeah.
But yeah, just enjoying those moments.
Cool. Yeah. No, I agree. It's nice getting out and just enjoying the time with them. Very social animals. So if people want to find out more about your setup and your operation, where can they find you online?
Yeah, you can find us on Instagram at Field of Hops, and we have just recently set up a Facebook business page that we're getting to. That is also at Field of Hops. So you can find us there, and some nice videos and pictures, and try to share some info there. That's what we have going now. From a previous, I think, one of your podcasts. Hopefully we'll have a website up here soon.
All right.
We'll be running to go with that, too.
All right. Sounds great, man. Well, man, I appreciate it. I hope you survive this crazy snowstorm that's coming through, and have a good rest of your week. So as you can tell, we were able to get the interview finished before the bad weather hit us. We did actually lose power from that ice storm, so is what it is. That's the part you paid for living in paradise, right? So anyway, well, I appreciate Matt coming on and sharing his story with us, and appreciate him just again being transparent and letting us know what he was dealing with and the issues that come along. Well, again, don't forget to check out, if you're interested, in our marketing deep dive. We're doing one episode a month where we're going to take a subject like that and get really deep into it, have some big discussion there, and then, of course, opportunities for Q&A afterwards through the Patreon format. So check that out, information down below in the show notes. Well, I pray everyone have a great week, and we'll be back in 2 weeks. Take care.
We hope you have enjoyed this episode of the Pastured Pig Podcast. To learn more about our podcast, or to submit topics or recommend guests for future episodes, visit redtoolhouse.com.